When we reflect on the life paths of influential figures like Carl Jung, it's easy to fall into a subtle but powerful trap: comparison. We see the magnitude of their contributions, the depth of their intellect, the revolutionary nature of their work, and we can't help but feel small in contrast. Their lives seem purposeful, legendary even, as if every step they took was destined to leave a lasting mark on the world. Meanwhile, our own lives may feel mundane, even trivial, filled with routines, minor challenges, and invisible efforts. But this perception, although common, is profoundly misleading. The true meaning of a life cannot be measured solely by external achievements, public recognition, or monumental breakthroughs. Jung's life, while extraordinary in its intellectual depth, was not defined by constant triumphs. It was shaped by a lifelong inner journey, a process of exploring his psyche, confronting his fears, embracing his contradictions, and seeking truth in the depths of his unconscious mind. In truth, every meaningful life is born from this same process. Meaning is not found only in external outcomes. It is revealed in the silent victories of the soul, in the courage to face one's inner chaos, and in the willingness to grow, even when the path is unclear. Just like Jung, we each walk a personal journey, marked not by perfection, but by authenticity. You see, Carl Jung believed that the purpose of life wasn't something imposed from the outside or written in the stars. It was something discovered within. According to him, life's deepest significance lies not in what you do, but in who you are becoming. The process of becoming yourself, your true self, was, in Jung's view, the highest goal of the human experience. And that process, which he called individuation, is anything but easy. At the heart of Jungian psychology lies a powerful idea. The human psyche is not a singular, unified thing. It's a vast, layered reality composed of both the conscious and the unconscious. The conscious part of you, the ego, is the aspect you're most familiar with. It's the version of yourself you think about, talk about, and show to the world. But beyond this ego lies an immense inner world that operates beneath your awareness, the unconscious. And hidden within this unconscious realm is what Jung called the shadow. The shadow is not evil by nature. It's simply the collection of all those parts of ourselves that we've repressed, denied, or disowned over the years. Emotions we were told were bad. Desires we were taught to be ashamed of. Thoughts we feared would make others reject us. All of it gets pushed into the dark corners of our psyche. But the shadow doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. In fact, the more we deny it, the more it controls us from behind the scenes, through projections, habits, triggers, and repeated patterns we don't understand. Jung taught that real transformation only begins when we stop running from our shadow and start engaging with it consciously, because the work of integrating the shadow is the work of becoming whole. And here's the paradox: to become your highest self, you must first face your darkest self. Many people think they know themselves. They believe they have a clear picture of their identity, their values, likes, dislikes, dreams, and fears. But self-awareness, in the Jungian sense, is much deeper than that. It's not about building a stronger ego or curating a better self-image. It's about descending into the unknown territory of your inner world, confronting what lives there, and allowing the truth, however uncomfortable, to transform you. This process demands radical honesty. It requires you to ask yourself questions you might usually avoid. Why did I feel that sudden burst of envy? Why did I react with such defensiveness? Was that really my choice? Or was I just acting out of fear habit, or wounded pride. Practices like journaling, dream analysis, and meditation can help you make contact with these deeper layers of yourself. They are tools to explore the symbols and feelings that rise from the unconscious. But the key is not just to observe, but to listen. Your shadow speaks in subtle ways, through dreams, slips of the tongue, projections onto others, emotional outbursts, and even your attractions and aversions. Jung emphasized that integrating the shadow doesn't mean indulging it or letting it take over your life. If you discover rage, resentment, or selfishness within yourself, that doesn't mean you are those things entirely. It means you're human. The goal is not to become pure or perfect, but to become real, to accept that light and darkness both exist within you, and that only by owning all parts of yourself can you live authentically. Your purpose, according to Jung, is deeply personal. It won't look like anyone else's, and it won't be handed to you from the outside. It must be unearthed from within. Through this long, sometimes painful, often liberating journey toward wholeness. This is why Jung said, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakens." Awakening doesn't come from following someone else's path. It comes from walking your own, fully conscious of the terrain. The path to purpose isn't linear. It will take you through confusion, contradiction, and complexity. You may not always know where you're going, but every moment you choose truth over illusion, growth over comfort, awareness over avoidance. You are getting closer. So if you ever find yourself feeling small, lost, or insignificant compared to someone like Carl Jung, remember this. Jung himself was once just a man with questions, doubts, and a deep yearning to understand. His greatness didn't come from having all the answers. It came from his willingness to go inward, to explore, and to evolve. And that journey is available to you too. You don't need to be famous, or brilliant, or revolutionary. You only need to be honest with yourself, because your soul is already guiding you. The question is, are you willing to listen? One of the most subtle and yet most powerful ways the shadow reveals itself is through judgment. We judge others for traits we ourselves refuse to acknowledge. It's almost paradoxical. The very qualities that irritate us most in others often mirror hidden aspects within us that we've repressed, denied, or disowned. Carl Jung referred to this phenomenon as projection. In essence, we're not just reacting to the other person, we're reacting to a disowned part of ourselves that is being reflected back like a mirror. Think about that for a moment. Every time someone frustrates you, every time a behavior strikes a nerve deep inside you, it's an opportunity, an invitation, a mirror. What if the reason you're so disturbed isn't because of who they are, but because of what you haven't yet dared to confront in yourself? Jung suggested that those who are quickest to condemn selfishness often harbor their own suppressed self-interest. Those who lose patience with others might be silently battling their own inner chaos. The external conflict is often just a projection of an internal one. So next time someone bothers you deeply, pause. Ask yourself, is there something about this that reminds me of me? That single question can begin to crack the surface of your unconscious. And the moment you choose to reflect, instead of react, you take your first step into the transformative work Jung called shadow integration. But where does this process really begin? It starts in silence, in stillness, with a pen, a journal, and the courage to ask the questions no one else can answer for you. Questions like, what am I hiding from others? What am I hiding from myself? This practice isn't glamorous. It's uncomfortable. But it's where self-discovery truly begins. And the more honestly you engage with your inner world, the more you move toward authenticity, toward wholeness, toward a life that feels real. Because let's be clear, this isn't about perfection. Jung never advocated for being good in the traditional sense. In fact, he once said, "I don't aspire to be a good person, I aspire to be a whole person." That means accepting everything that makes you human, including the parts you've been taught to reject. Your jealousy, your pride, your fear, your rage. They're not your enemies. They're unacknowledged pieces of you, buried in the shadow, waiting not to be erased, but to be understood. Of course, the moment you begin this journey, something strange might happen. You may feel worse before you feel better. Because once you've seen your shadow, you can't pretend it's not there. You can't unsee it. You can't go back to the comfort of ignorance. That moment of recognition can be jarring. You realize that the version of yourself you've presented to the world is only a fragment of the whole, and it's tempting to retreat, to deny, to push it all back down. But repression is not healing. Repression is delay, and what you push down does not disappear. It grows stronger in silence. The more you ignore a part of yourself, the more power it gains in the darkness. Anger, laziness, envy, if denied, they don't vanish. They wait. And they tend to emerge when you're least prepared, when you're tired, vulnerable, or overwhelmed. That's when the shadow speaks. That's when it erupts. And when it does, it often does damage. Not because those traits are inherently evil, but because they've been left unchecked and unconscious for too long. You see, the person who believes, "I never get angry," might one day explode in uncontrollable rage. The one who insists, "I'm never lazy," may suddenly crash from exhaustion, unable to function. So what's the alternative? What can you do with these darker impulses once you recognize them? You work with them. You give them a name, a face, a voice. You stop trying to eliminate them and instead begin the lifelong process of integrating them. Because each piece of the shadow carries something valuable, a message, a warning, a lesson. Anger, for example, isn't always destructive. When handled consciously, it becomes a boundary, a force of clarity, a protector of what matters to you. But when buried, it festers. It turns into resentment, or worse, it erupts without warning. So the question becomes, when is an emotion trying to guide you? And when is it trying to control you? When do you wear your social mask, your persona? And when do you let it fall? These aren't questions with easy answers, but they're worth asking every day. Because the more you sit with your emotions, instead of labeling them as good or bad, the more you begin to understand their deeper roots. Take envy, for example. It's uncomfortable, but it's not useless. Envy can reveal what you desire most. It can point toward goals you've been afraid to pursue. Laziness, too, can be misunderstood. Sometimes, what we call laziness is actually resistance. Resistance to a life that doesn't align with who we really are. Or it's a cry for rest, a need to slow down and reconnect with what's truly meaningful. Even impatience can serve you. When balanced, it becomes decisiveness, urgency, the push to move forward and stop waiting for permission. The truth is, there is wisdom in every emotion, if you have the willingness to listen. But integration doesn't happen overnight. It's not a one-time realization. It's a daily commitment, a willingness to sit with discomfort, to own your contradictions, to hold complexity without shame. You don't let your shadow control you, But you don't deny it either. You give it space. You learn from it. And over time, it becomes part of you. Not as a threat, but as a source of strength. Because your shadow was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to complete you. And only when you accept and embrace the darkness within can you begin to transform it. That's the paradox of healing. The parts of yourself you once tried to hide may become the very tools that set you free. This is the heart of deep self-knowledge, the ability to look at yourself fully and not turn away, to say, "This is me, all of me, the light and the dark, the noble and the flawed." And when you arrive at that place, when you stop pretending and start integrating, you no longer chase perfection, you seek wholeness. And with that wholeness comes clarity, peace, inner alignment. You start to understand what you truly want, what you truly need, and most importantly, who you truly are. Shadow work never truly ends. It's a continuous process, a spiral that always has the potential to go deeper. Every time you grow a little more, every time you choose to act with greater awareness, you're adding meaning to your life. As Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." In other words, knowing yourself is important, but it must be proven through your actions. The purpose of your life is not found only in thoughts or intentions, but in what you do every day. What you do with what you know about yourself. That's what really matters. That's why it's not enough to understand your shadow or your unconscious. It's not enough to have good intentions or want to change. You must act. And acting means no longer living reactively, just responding to what happens, and instead beginning to take initiative. Rather than waiting for someone to reach out, you take the first step. Rather than hoping for a promotion, you make a plan and pursue it. Instead of waiting for life to magically make sense, you begin building a meaningful life through your own actions. Though it may seem simple, this is where most people get stuck. Today, most of us live in reactive mode, even those already exploring their shadow or working on themselves. And of course, that inner work is a powerful first step, but it's not enough. If you don't bring it into action, you remain trapped in a cycle that seems like progress, but actually keeps you in place. After doing deep inner work, it's common to think, "Now I can rest." But staying still for too long is what anchors you to a meaningless life. The key is to keep walking, to keep challenging yourself, and to keep moving out of stagnation. Once you've taken real steps to explore your shadow and improve based on what you found, it's also important to go further, take additional steps, and live with intention. Ask yourself regularly, what do I truly believe in? Do I have a spiritual practice or core values that guide my life? What moral principles matter to me? How do I behave daily? What do I want to achieve this year and in the next 5 years? How do I want to contribute to the world? What do I expect from others? You can write these questions down, meditate on them, or let them guide your daily reflections. The answers will give you clear clues about the kinds of actions you need to take. Maybe, for instance, you dream of becoming a published author. And yes, many people share that desire, but most do very little to make it real. They wait for inspiration, for a quieter time, or believe the book will write itself someday. But that mindset is still reactive. It's like saying, when the perfect moment arrives, it'll just flow. But it doesn't work that way. Someone who truly wants to be a writer begins to act like one now. A committed aspiring author writes regularly, with or without inspiration. When blocked, they seek exercises or advice to keep going. They finish stories not just through motivation, but through discipline. And then they actively reach out to people in the publishing world, such as literary agents. Of course, not everyone finds meaning in professional goals. Maybe your purpose is more abstract or spiritual, and that's perfectly valid too. You might, for example, wish to have a positive impact on future generations. That can take many forms. You could become a parent, a teacher, start a youth organization, work as a political advisor for young people, or support social causes in your community. The important thing is not the exact how, but which path resonates with you, and above all, what actions you're going to take to make it real. Constantly asking questions about your values and beliefs gives you clarity about what truly matters to you. But once you know, you must act. Because yes, it's possible to survive living reactively, but you will never find meaning that way. True meaning demands action. Carl Jung put it very clearly. Where your fear is, there is your task. One of the main reasons people live reactively is not laziness or lack of effort. In most cases, it's fear. To act is to risk, and risk is scary. If you have an idea for a book, you have to risk being disappointed with what you write. And if you finish the book, you'll face the possibility of multiple rejections before it's published. Every meaningful action carries the chance that things won't go as hoped. That's why you need courage. Courage doesn't come from the absence of fear. It's not about never feeling afraid. Fear shouldn't be ignored or repressed, because if you do, it will return to your shadow and begin to control you from within. Instead of running from fear, you must acknowledge it. So, whenever you face an important decision or a scary action, ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? And if it does happen, how would I handle it? Often, fear shrinks when you look at it head-on and prepare for what's likely, not what's extreme. Don't confuse preparation with anxiety or overthinking. To prepare means to be ready for real scenarios, not to get lost in catastrophic fantasies. For example, if your goal is to publish a book, prepare for rejection letters, or even for no response at all. But also, prepare to keep writing, to self-publish, or to meet a literary agent who believes in your work. Don't waste energy imagining that someone will steal your idea, humiliate you, or that the whole world will laugh. Those scenarios, besides being unlikely, only hold you back. When you examine your fear and prepare realistically, much of that anxiety dissolves. Fear may never disappear completely, but once you've done everything you can to face it, the only thing left is to jump. Take the step, go all in. At its core, courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. No one who ever achieved something meaningful in life did it by avoiding what scared them. As Carl Jung said, where your fear is, there is your task. And when you discover what scares you most, you also discover what could give your life the most meaning. In one of his most powerful quotes, Jung said, "Even a happy life cannot be without a measure of darkness, and the word happy would lose its meaning if it were not balanced by sadness." What does that mean? That even if you do everything right, know yourself, grow, act, face your fears, it doesn't mean life will be perfect. No one has a perfect life. In fact, the most influential and admired people are often the ones who suffered most and took the biggest risks. Pain and difficulty are not the opposite of purpose. They are an essential part of it. Accepting the hard times, the disappointments, the failures, that's necessary to build a meaningful life. Because if only victory existed, how would you recognize success? If you never felt sadness, How would you appreciate joy? There can be no light without shadow. So every time something bad happens, change the narrative. Learn to see misfortune and mistakes as growth opportunities. Every time something shakes you, it's showing you a part of yourself you didn't know. And that alone is part of your purpose. No one realizes they need to be more grounded without first failing by being too idealistic. No one learns they're strong and resilient until life tests them. Say your novel was rejected by every publisher, or you quit a stable job to study again, and it didn't work out. Sure, it may hurt, but now you have more context to appreciate the good that comes next. You learned something, and that learning gives your life more depth. For Jung, the meaning of life isn't found in achieving a final goal. It's in everything you do to try to get there. Because even if you don't reach it, the journey already transformed you. Purpose is not a trophy earned at the end. It's in how you walk, the choices you make, and the honesty with which you face yourself. That means even if you don't become a famous author or public figure, your life can be full of purpose. Every day, you choose to act authentically. The simple act of trying, of rising again and again, of building something with intention, is already a powerful way to honor your existence. It's in those quiet, invisible, intimate moments that real meaning is created. Giving your life purpose isn't something achieved once. It's a continuous task. There will always be more to discover about yourself. New goals, new paths, and yes, you'll keep experiencing joys and disappointments, victories and setbacks. But it's that exact blend that makes your life so unique. That unrepeatable combination of light and shadow, of effort and stillness, of discipline and faith. That's what gives your story its worth. Always honor the fact that you tried. Even if the outcome wasn't perfect, even if it didn't match your expectations, the attempt itself carries meaning. It carries weight. It is a sign that something inside you dared to move forward despite the uncertainty, despite the fear. According to Carl Jung, the journey toward wholeness is not measured by success or flawlessness, but by the courage it takes to face the unknown aspects of the self. The psyche doesn't seek perfection. It seeks integration. It seeks to make sense of our inner contradictions, to unify the fragments of our being, to bring the unconscious into the light. So, yes, honor the fact that you showed up for your life, even on the days when you didn't feel like enough. Honor the small steps, the invisible battles, the quiet resilience. You may think they don't matter, but they do. Those are the moments that shape you. Those are the moments that call forth your soul. And above all, choose gratitude. Not the kind that is forced or performative, but the quiet, sincere kind. The kind that notices what is already here, right now. The people who stayed, the breath in your lungs, the silence that holds you when the world gets loud. Be thankful for the brief moments of calm, the fleeting glimpses of clarity, the unexpected bursts of laughter that remind you of who you are. Even if you feel like you've barely made progress, even if you're still struggling, don't overlook what you've already done. Don't dismiss the ground you've covered just because the mountain still looms ahead. Gratitude transforms perception. It opens the eyes of the soul. When we shift from lack to presence, we begin to see that the very things we once took for granted were in fact the foundation of our strength. And remember this, your life has meaning, not because of grand achievements, not because of titles or recognition, but because you continue to offer your best, even when no one sees it. even when it seems like the world doesn't notice, even when the voice in your head tries to convince you that it's not enough. Your willingness to keep going, to keep learning, to keep reaching inward, that is your purpose unfolding. Because purpose isn't something you chase. It's not some destination you'll arrive at one day when all the conditions are perfect. It's not waiting for you in some imagined future. It is already here, in how you choose to live, how you choose to respond, how you choose to show up. Purpose is a state of being. It's the decision to live consciously, to recognize your patterns, to face your fears, to name your shadows, to act with honesty and heart, and to create each day, not from what's missing, but from what you already hold within. That